Good morning. Pleasure to be here. Tia, congratulations. Delighted to be here for the launch of your book.
Good morning, sir. Thank you very much for joining.
Your labor of love of the last couple of years.
Thank you, sir.
I think the audio is okay. Some participants have an issue, the audio, but Sridhar, you can hear me, right?
Yes, I can hear
you. Sir, I think you'll have to check your own speaker, but by and large, the audio from this side is fine.
It's okay now, Arnab.
Yes.
Now it's clear.
Okay, I think we'll start now, sir. Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much. I can see senior people and many younger people also joining us today. And I think it's a very, very important event. And thank you all for joining us. It's a event organized jointly between the Maritime Research Centre and the Indian Maritime Foundation. Now I request President Indian Maritime Foundation, Captain Anand Dikshit sir, to give his welcome speech. Anand sir.
Distinguished guests, members of Indian Maritime Foundation, students and researchers of the Maritime Research Centre, good morning and a warm welcome to all of you to the release event of the book by Ms. Tia Chatterjee, Underwater Archaeology in India. Thank you for giving your valuable time to attend this web event and show your appreciation to Tia Chatterjee for her admirable efforts. This is a very satisfying moment for the Indian Maritime Foundation, as the book was written under the fellowship program of the IMF. And we have been keenly following the progress of the book and are well aware of the efforts that have gone into the writing of this book. As the director of MRC and the mentor of Tia, Commander Arnadas would no doubt be happy to see the successful completion and release of the book. But the person no less happy on this occasion would be Commodore Rajan Veer, President Emeritus of IMF, who, as the then president, was able to see the significance of the theme of the book, Underwater Archaeology, and the need for encouraging Tia to take up the study of this nascent field. A word about the Indian Maritime Foundation for those who may not be familiar with the organization. IMF is a non-profit NGO founded in 1994 by a group of retired Indian Navy and Merchant Marine officers. Our objectives, among others, are all aspects of India's maritime interests. But the two I want to mention here are: one, to rekindle maritime consciousness among the people of India, especially the children and the youth. Two, to generate awareness of and research in India's maritime heritage and related history. Our support to this book is directly linked to these two objectives. Our other initiatives include the Maritime Museum, a library, and Maritime Research Centre situated in the campus of Shahu College at Anantrao Pawar College of Engineering and Research, Pune. Please do visit it when you get a chance. Coming back to Tia's book, one aspect of maritime archaeology that caught my attention was the regulatory and legal aspect. How to manage the protection and preservation of underwater cultural heritage, especially when treasure hunting becomes a corporate business with large sums of money involved and use of sophisticated modern technology such as ROVs and AUVs, those are remotely operated vehicles and autonomous underwater vehicles. The answer is adequate policing with means equal to or better than the poachers, backed by effective legal framework is the only answer. If the heritage sites are located further out to sea, the question of jurisdiction may arise. The United Nations Law of the Sea Convention 1982 UNCLOS that defines the maritime zones provides for the protection of the heritage sites in the exclusive economic zone EEZ, which normally extends to 200 nautical miles from the shore. It is true, as has been pointed out, that UNCLOS provisions are not entirely satisfactory. There are a few loopholes, but here the resolve of the coastal state, backed by a strong navy and the Coast Guard, for asserting its legitimate rights in the EEZ, especially on our own continental shelf, can be very crucial. Without these, the state may find itself in a situation similar to the one that Philippines is in today. In spite of having the law on its side and international tribunal's verdict in its favor, Philippines is unable to enforce the court verdict against a powerful China, which is claiming its offshore waters without any regard for the UNCLOS provisions. Protection of offshore assets, including our cultural and heritage assets, should be seen in this context. I conclude my welcome address by wishing Tia Chatterjee more success in the field she has chosen. I now hand over to Commander Arnab Das for the next part of the program. Thank you.
Thank you, Anand sir.
Were you able to hear me to the end? Sorry.
Yes, sir, we could hear you.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's okay.
Moving forward, I'll be giving you a sense of the underwater domain awareness concept that we have been working on in the Maritime Research Center. This book was conceived at the Maritime Research Center, and I found Tia to be one of the most competent person to take this forward. I met her when she had just finished her archaeology postgraduate, and she's a history graduate before that. So I thought it's the best to work with somebody like her with the kind of experience she had. I'll talk less about the book because all of you are going to hear from her. I will try and talk about the underwater domain awareness framework and how this, and today is also an occasion where we are going to be talking about new fellowships at MRC and what are the different ideas. And we have a lot of young students and young professionals whom we seek that they will participate in this journey, and we would like to encourage. And so my presentation is going to be telling them what this fellowship is all about and what are the new opportunities that exist. Underwater domain awareness framework is receiving a lot of attention now with the present geopolitical developments that we see. There is a lot of interest now in the underwater domain awareness. We had a seminar a month back. We had very senior people who attended, and there somebody very senior made a statement that the Sagar vision of the Prime Minister will be extremely limited unless the UDA framework is given the due importance. So that's very encouraging for us. But at the same time, let me explain what this UDA framework is all about. Typically, there is something called an MDA framework, Maritime Domain Awareness, and I have particularly resisted the extension of MDA to say that UDA is just an underwater component of the present MDA. The UDA framework, as proposed by us, talks about pooling of resources and synergizing of ideas. We have multiple stakeholders and we need to recognize their role and their importance. We have the national security, which is very important, without any doubt. The blue economy is very important. The maritime environment and the disaster management issues that need to be looked at. And then science and technology. I mean, science and technology will always remain the driver for. So this framework tries to address how all these stakeholders can come together, pooling their resources and synergize their effort. And this cube also represents, if you look at the horizontal construct, there are these stakeholders who will have their unique requirement or a specialized requirement. But the core will be the acoustic capacity building, which addresses the challenges of the Indian Ocean region or the tropical waters. Then we have the vertical construct, where we talk about sensing, analysis, and regulation. There are still a lot of aspects that are still to be covered under the regulations. So, I mean, as Tia is going to talk about the underwater archaeology, but there are many other aspects also in the underwater domain which are yet to be regulated. But the problem here is that we have very little sensing or very little understanding of our own ground condition. So there's a lot of effort required. This is a multidisciplinary framework that we are talking about. So students or professionals from all kinds of discipline, whether it is a legal domain or it is a management domain or science and technology domain or any other domain, there will be a requirement that all of us come together, synergize our effort and move forward. So I will leave it at that. I will not take too much time on this. Going forward, we've had some very fellows who have worked under the MRC banner. Two of my PhD scholars, Professor Rajveer is now a senior professor in one of the educational institutes, engineering colleges. Dr. Piyush is now working in the corporate sector, contributing significantly. And they are the pioneers who worked with us on the underwater domain and worked on specific technology aspects of the underwater domain. Then recently we had Captain Saubhagya Rao, who got promoted to the rank of captain in the Navy, and he also finished his PhD a month back with us, and looking at the underwater networks and more from a sensor network perspective, a technology perspective. Then we had Dr. Jyoti Sadalge, who worked on water resource management, specifically on the sediment classification. She also finished her PhD a month back. So we are very happy to have. And these are very different domains that they have covered. Jyoti's work is extremely relevant to the freshwater resource management work. That is very, very important now. Freshwater is a very, very critical asset. And there's a huge amount of underwater domain awareness required if we have to really effectively manage and efficiently manage our resources. Then we have research scholars who have worked with us. Sridhar is now transitioned to Neerdhwani as a manager research. He has worked with as a fellow. And then we have Lieutenant Commander Richard, who's worked on underwater sensing. He's joined back the Navy for his further appointments. Done a lot of good work on underwater sensing and channel modeling. He's a mathematics background student and done his master's, and as a part of his master's program, he worked with us as a research scholar. I just mentioned people who have worked with us for more than a year or so. I mean, there are many bright young students and professionals who have been associated with us. I can proudly say more than 200 young students and professionals have gone through MRC and have been introduced to or exposed to the underwater domain awareness framework. Tia, as I've talked, and I think I will limit myself not talking too much because she's going to be anyway talking about her book and how she's gone about that. Again, I would like to emphasize that there are different models of fellowships that we have in MRC. This is a book project. Then there are some other aspects also which can be covered. We run through every year. We do a summer school, which is 6 weeks residential program. We've had students from all over the country. Now we are also looking at having international participation from next year. This year, COVID did not permit us to do this. The purpose of UDA Summer School is more of giving them exposure, and every student or every participant does a project. We've had a Coast Guard officer, DRDO scientist, and shipyard officer also participating. And this is a lot of peer learning format. Last year, we had 39 participants from all over the country. I mean, even we have had students from as far as Guwahati, who have participated, and they've been given all kinds of exposure to senior marine strategists, senior experts, academicians, people in the corporate, and all kinds. I mean, we've had even people from Taiwan University coming and interacting on geopolitics with them. It's been a very satisfying thing for us, where the UDA Summer School is a different journey, but the research scholars and the other fellowships are a little more intense in terms of the research component. So we try to do a balance between the two. We've had Honorable Goa Chief Minister was there for the inaugural. Before that, we've had the valedictory function at late Shri Manohar Parrikar sir's office. He was extremely kind, and even in spite of his bad health, he permitted that, and he took a lot of interest in what we are doing and gave us a lot of guidance. Admiral Arun Prakash, former Naval Chief. I mean, we've had all kinds of, you can see Dr. Prasanna Kumar sir, former director of NIO, the present director of NIO. So it's the UDA Summer School is more about exposure to technology, exposure to experts, and the project is more aligned to that. Now, going ahead, there are multiple ideas, and I would like to expose you to certain ideas and where we encourage multidisciplinary thing and multi-stakeholder participation. I mean, the underwater radiated noise management, you can see there is a acoustic stealth requirement in terms of the Navy, but the same ideas, same technologies can also be relevant to the acoustic habitat degradation more from an environmental management perspective, and also from the ship design and ship construction perspective. So we try and focus on all these things, and we encourage multidisciplinary students, right from even humanities students have a role, and BCom students have a role on working on the various aspects, because this is a domain which requires policy, technology, and innovation, and also human resource development. So we try and focus on all those things just to give you a sense of some of the ideas, and I encourage many young students to participate. Inland water transport is a huge project. There are multiple aspects of technology that you can see. Plus, there are many policy issues that need support. So just to give you a sense of some of the ideas that we are pursuing, and we have done a lot of work, but there is still so much to be done. And we request more and more young people to join us. And there are many fellowships that are the sediment classification. Again, if you look at from the application perspective, water resource management, we just finished a PhD. I talked about inland water transport requires a whole lot of sediment classification to keep the waters navigable. There is a whole lot of aspects required. Then we even talk about shipbuilding and design, then port management. There are a whole lot of aspects that need to be covered. So, I mean, this basically, these are all there in our website, just to, give you a sense. Dredging, how to choose the right dredging method, how to make it more efficient and more cost effective. Dredging otherwise can become unmanageable. Underwater search and rescue, again, this is a very, very important area with so much increase in the maritime activities. There is bound to be such requirements, and I think there is a lot of work to be done on this. Again, I mean, there are multiple aspects that modeling and simulation is also very important. How do we plan the search? How do we deploy the resources? Again, underwater robotics is going to be a very important component of this, but there are many aspects, but it has to be a comprehensive. So we are doing a lot of work in this. We have a couple of research notes also already part of this in our website. I'll request you to please have a look at that. Habitat degradation. Now, with the increasing maritime activity, this is another very, very important thing. We have started seeing stranding of ships, stranding of marine mammals and big whales in our waters, and this requires a lot of attention. The European Union is showing a lot of activity in this, and we should keep pace, otherwise we'll find ourselves left out in the development journey. Real-time passive sonar deployment tool. This is a very unique that has been developed by us. Now it is not limited to passive sonar alone. Any kind of sonar deployment, particularly in the Indian Ocean region where we have tropical littoral waters, there's again a lot of work that can be added to this. And I invite young students, people desirous of working in artificial intelligence, data analytics, underwater system development, network, sensor networks, whole lot of things can be looked at. Just to give you a sense of the kind of work we do, I mean, this book, if you look at Underwater Archaeology, was more from the search, not on the field work side. But we have also done certain field work on acoustic surveys or sediment classification, which can be the next part of the underwater archaeology work. I mentioned Jyoti Sadalge, who did her PhD, and this was a unique PhD because we also did some field experiment, and we were very lucky to get support from NDA. NDA gave us complete board support. They gave us we organized a 5-day workshop where we got support from them, and we hired 3 different types of sonars and deployed them in the Khadakwasta Lake to do data collection. So it was a 5-day thing where 2 days, morning till evening, under various conditions, data was collected using 3 different sonars and also a CTD sensor. And that data was used by my PhD student, and she did another 1 year of work before the actual experiment to do the modeling and simulation, and then it was more of a validation exercise. But this is a very unique PhD that was done, and it was highly appreciated. She just got her degree a month back. So these are some of the pictures that will tell you. This is the sub-bottom profiler which was deployed. We had a single beam sonar and a side scan sonar, and all the data was corroborated, and the validation was done for her modeling and simulation exercise. And we also organized a workshop along with that. So we had about 30 participants who could take the benefit of such a different type of research. So, and we are very thankful to NDA for the kind of support they gave us. We hired all the sonars and the equipment from outside, and they gave us the support because infrastructure like NDA is very important because going to a water body has its own hazards. And Rajan sir was actively involved and even present on the boat on some of the, because we were worried about the safety of so many people being part of that. But the kind of support we got from NDA was, I think, absolutely. So these are some of the pictures. We took actual coring samples also to validate the acoustic findings and the actual sample collection, and they were taken to a lab to test them and verify. I mean, whatever findings we had from the acoustic analysis, that was also validated with the sediment samples being tested. So these are some of the pictures and some of the things of the workshop. And going forward, potential opportunities, I mean, young students who want to get involved with this. Sediment classification has multiple applications. So we've talked about some of them. Port management, oil and gas industry. I mean, these are opportunities going forward after you have gone through this UDA exposure, or the UDA framework is relevant to all these stakeholders. Oil and gas industry has got many technology requirements of underwater acoustics, inland water transport, as I talked about. This is a huge project. Government has got a lot of focus. 116 waterways are planned. We have started work on the second waterway. So the next generation can be looking at this in a very, very serious way. Underwater search and rescue, as I mentioned, hydrographic surveys are now becoming more and more important as the maritime activities are picking up. Marine environment will become an issue, so we need to focus on that. From an industry connect perspective, oil and gas and the associated industries, underwater survey for mining and mapping, government regulators in the maritime sector, NGOs involved in marine environment monitoring, consultants for environmental impact assessment. That's another very huge area. Irrigation department and flood control across states, maritime security agencies, port authorities, and shipping industry. We have developed certain skill development programs also. And so these are the stakeholders which are extremely relevant. Scientific organization and policy makers. So a lot of data will be required, and our policies have to be data driven of our real world conditions in our area. Now, young India needs to look at specialized skills. Post-COVID, we all know there are difficulty in finding suitable opportunities. But if you are rightly skilled, I think that should not be a problem. But our learning should be more real world. So I call upon the students to do their projects, which is more aligned to the real world requirements. And it has to be a multidisciplinary approach. I mean, you must also know, I mean, that's what, I mean, Tia came from a humanities background, and she worked with people who are working on technology. And that is the kind of environment we provide in Maritime Research Center, where multidisciplinary students work together and share their ideas, share their learning. And that's what makes it a more comprehensive way forward. And your effort should be coherent with the geostrategic realities. I mean, this is a very important thing many seniors talk about, that the jobs that are there today will not exist after 5 years. So are you going to be taking a direction which is relevant for a longer period? I think UDA is one such domain which I would call it a sunrise sector. Academic programs, we are now talking to various academic institutions also, and some programs are going to start very soon. Policy and strategy, technology and innovation, business plan. So we have developed an MS and PhD program where we are going to be having all kinds of students, some looking at the technology aspect, some looking at the policy aspect, and some looking at the management or a business plan. And so we need to look at, and I think the new education policy does give the broad framework to work on that. And so that is, I think, an important step taken by the government, and I think we are very much aligned with the national plan. There are many startup ideas, Startup India also. So we are again looking at an incubation center, sustainable entrepreneurship, because we do a lot of work on environmental aspects, focus on domain awareness. We need to develop a lot of inputs on our conditions in what is unique about our, unless the policies are aligned to data-driven inputs, it will be difficult. So again, multi-stakeholder relevance, when you see the cube, you know exactly which part of the cube you're working on and who are the stakeholders who will be relevant to your work. I mean, I'm addressing students that when you do a project as part of your degree program, you must be very focused on who is going to be interested in my work, and so that you can pitch yourself correctly and focus on core competence. That is very, very important. And I think there are multiple areas in the UDA framework where core competence will be extremely important. And whosoever comes and does a fellowship with us, we never take them away from their core competence, but we try to build the project around their core competence and kind of help them understand that further. Now, the new opportunity that we have announced, or we are going to be announcing very soon, is a UDA project fellowship. It's a 5-month or a semester long fellowship where we will be supporting students financially to work with us and look at this domain. The second is the research fellowship, which will be a little more intense, and there's no time limit, but I am looking at about a year or year and a half, like this book project which was there, something like that. We develop a certain area and work on that. Then PhD students get associated with us, and many are now going to be joining us. We have multiple academic collaboration with some good universities, and now some universities abroad are also talking to us, and institutions are talking to us in taking this forward. So there's a lot of interest and there's a lot of potential for research in the Indian waters, multiple areas, as must have understood from my presentation. And at NDT also, we are looking at certain project associates to take this UDA forward. Thank you so much. And now I'll request Tia to take over and give us a sense of how she went about it. Tia is a graduate in history, as I mentioned. Then she went on to her postgraduate or master's in archaeology, and now for the last 2 years, I can see her focusing on marine archaeology. She is presently working with Indian Navy's history and working with them. Yeah, all yours.
Thank you, sir, for your insightful talk, and good morning, everybody. I would like to welcome all of you once again for my book launch today, and I feel extremely overwhelmed and happy by the participation and all the wishes that I can see in the chat box. The pandemic has altered the original course of this event, as it was supposed to be an offline event. However, I feel extremely happy by the participation, and I take a lot of joy in expressing that I'm able to share my story with all of you today. This event is actually a very significant milestone in my life, both academically as well as personally. This opportunity has enabled me to research on a discipline which is so niche and interesting that it has inspired me to pursue further studies in the same. And the journey of writing this book has made me evolve as a person, and I think it has allowed me to realize my strengths, my potential, and also form interesting connects in the domain. And I would go ahead by sharing a very, very brief presentation. Just bear with me. I am so sorry for the, yes. Well, there are a number of factors which actually played a very important role in motivating me for pursuing this research and writing this book, which I think is a question which many people ask me. And I think talking about motivation, I would. Yes. Talking about motivation, firstly, I would like to begin with the Maritime Research Centre, Pune, and Das sir for initiating the idea of research into such a unique discipline which is unexplored. Next, I would like to thank the Indian Maritime Foundation, Rajan sir, and all the members of IMF for believing in the scope of this research and awarding me the fellowship and to be able to write this book. And it has been a life-changing experience. Being an archaeologist, and that to being a woman archaeologist, I was already acquainted with the challenges of working in a very niche discipline, something which was not mainstream, and working and researching into underwater archaeology was a step ahead, and that actually persuaded me to take up this research. Most of us are acquainted with the fact that India had a very sea-blinded approach till a couple of years ago. Now, India was a maritime superpower in the past, and somehow as the society started becoming more complex, seafaring was restricted only to the coastal communities, and this led to the non-participation of the other varnas of or orders of people in the society, and it led to the genesis of a lot of taboos and superstitions which further acted as a constraint in the development of seafaring in our country. This was followed by the Mughal period, where the Mughals did not pay a lot of attention to our maritime aspect, and this was followed by India's subjugation by the Portuguese and then by the British. Even after independence, it took a lot of years for India to rekindle her maritime spirit and acknowledge and acknowledge the maritime power that she has. But however, I personally feel that when it comes to heritage, we still have a sea-blinded approach towards it, and this brings us to the idea of initiating this research, a holistic research in a very niche discipline, which would lead to documentation and conservation of heritage. We are noticing that there are a lot of activities of explorations and excavations already happening in the seas and the oceans. So there is an increase of man-made activities. Now, these would definitely contribute to the already natural deteriorating factors to this very fragile submerged heritage. So now is the time when we actually need to safeguard this heritage. When we look at the development of underwater archaeology in India and out of India, we see that there is a gap which exists, and it is very clear that we are a step behind despite having no dearth of maritime heritage in our country. There also exists a gap between the laymen and the professionals, and I feel that it is very important to bridge that gap. Now, talking about archaeology and underwater archaeology as being a very, very niche discipline, it cannot be the prerogative of a handful. It cannot be the prerogative of a handful of domain experts or researchers to safeguard the heritage. So the idea of a shared heritage has to be instilled in each one of us, which would aid to the conservation of maritime heritage in our country. And finally, dissemination of knowledge shouldn't be restricted to lengthy excavation or any kind of study reports, which are definitely available in the open domain. The idea is to provide information which is accessible to each and everybody, and through different age groups, for people who are having different backgrounds, so that anybody who wants to connect and wants to know about their maritime heritage should be able to get that in a way which is comprehensible by them. India and the Maritime Connect is one which is very ancient. We have 7,500 kilometers of coastline, and it is not at all difficult for us to imagine the amount of maritime heritage that we have, which is still unexplored and lies submerged. Indus Valley Civilization is one of the biggest examples of how ancient seafaring was in our country, and that the Harappans were involved in trade overseas. They were trading with Oman, they were trading with Mesopotamia, and there was also this very beautiful cultural amalgamation happening on the global level, which was happening. And I think one of the best examples for that would be Buddhism. Not only not only was this impacting the social and the cultural and economic life of people, but it was also penetrating into everyday life, like the belief system. For example, we have deities like the water deity Varuna, and we also have many rituals and practices and traditions centered around water, which we still practice today. And one of the best examples would be how we worship our rivers even today. And lastly, and very interestingly, we should consider ourselves extremely fortunate to be able to conduct studies, like, for example, studies which happened at Dwarka, because we have the literary evidence for the same. And there are numerous such examples and numerous such literary evidences which can be testified, on the scale of myth versus reality. Now, these snippets of information was just to give an idea of how deeply embedded the maritime aspect is to India and the versatility of maritime heritage that we have in our country. So, archaeology is a very interesting discipline which allows us to reconstruct human past with the help of material culture. And marine archaeology is a subdiscipline of archaeology. However, it not only comprises submerged remains, but also the ones which are located on land. However, nautical archaeology is a more specialized study which talks about the study of only shipwrecks, which could be submerged or even on land. However, underwater archaeology it revolves around the study of archaeological remains which are submerged in nature, and the present study focuses only on the submerged archaeological sites in India. So, coming to the submerged heritage of India, there are remarkable and path-breaking discoveries which have happened pertaining to underwater archaeology in India. Some of the best examples would be the very legendary Dwarka, Somnath, Mahabalipuram, Kaveri Patnam, and so on. The initiation of underwater archaeological studies in India started with the efforts of Dr. S.R. Rao, who's also known as the father of marine archaeology in India. And the first ever excavation happened in Dwarka in 1979. After that, the National Institute of Oceanography, Goa, was formed, and there were extensive surveys and very important researches which happened both on the eastern and the western coast, not only pertaining to underwater archaeological sites, but also shipwrecks, also sites which were located on the coast or along the coast. There were also a couple of regional centers which came up for the study of underwater archaeology. For example, the Center for Underwater Archaeology, Archaeological Studies, which was established in Tanjavur in 1983. And finally, we also have the Underwater Archaeology Wing of the Archaeological Survey of India, which was formulated in 2001 and which unfortunately was defunct by 2011. So now when we look at the development of underwater archaeology in India, we could actually divide it into three different phases. The first phase being the very dynamic phase, which is already bygone. The present phase, which appears to be static, and it seems that the discipline is grasping for survival. And the future would be the final stage, that if we do not get the wheels rolling right now, it would be extremely difficult to sustain this discipline in India. So this brings us to the very important aspect of the relevance of the study. Now, the current government is actually diverting a lot of its attention to the maritime aspect in terms of, say, commercial, economic, security. However, heritage is still kind of sidelined, but it actually works both ways, because when there's so much of research which is happening in the oceans and the seas, it could actually open up possibilities of even finding out archaeological artifacts, sites, and shipwrecks. And this could also work vice versa. If we initiate more research into underwater archaeology and more explorations and excavations take place, it could also lead to the possibility of finding of resources which would benefit for the national development. Now, we as Indians, we have grown up with this belief of preserving our heritage, our culture. It is very deeply imbibed into our everyday life. But however, embracing this is just not about culture. It is also about importance, because ancient knowledge in a lot of instances also has implementation value. And when we take this ancient knowledge, when we preserve it, and when we combine it with our present day knowledge, it immediately propels us towards development. And I feel that as humans, that is what, as a race, we're always looking for development and moving forward. The idea is also to not only to initiate research into this domain, which is holistic in nature, but also which is having a very technological approach. Now, if we look at the development of underwater archaeology across the globe, we see that it is kind of proportional to the development of technology. And one of the best examples would be the advent of scuba and how that acted as a catalyst to progress the development of underwater archaeological sites across the globe. So if we want to develop this field, we definitely need to evaluate our methodology and use more cutting edge technology for research which has wider horizons. And personally, I feel the most important aspect of such studies would be its contribution in enhancing our national pride. We all should be very, very proud being Indians and being shared custodians of Lothal, which is the earliest dockyard in the world, and also the vast treasure of heritage that we have. So we should definitely appreciate it, cherish it, and combine our forces to conserve it for posterity. The methodology which I've used for my research is extensive literature survey, which basically means trawling anything and everything which is available in the open domain. I was fortunate enough to interact with domain experts and also a number of people from the maritime industry, which proved to be very beneficial. In order to understand the gap which exists in the developmental scale between India and out of India, I think globally, I have taken a couple of case studies and I've derived inferences which would help us to develop the discipline in our country, also keeping in mind our resources, our needs, our current administrative setup, and so on. I also conducted a field visit to the coastal town of Murud Janjira, which is located in the Konkan coast of Maharashtra. The aim of doing this visit was to understand how such towns, which have a lot of tangible and intangible maritime heritage, could be converted into potential sites for tourism, how it can be safeguarded, and what do the locals feel about their depleting traditional knowledge owing to modernization, and how we can come up with something which benefits the heritage and also the people who are living there. Some of the most interesting observations of my research are first and foremost that the domain of underwater archaeology is currently in a very static and a stagnant state. And we need to evaluate our methodology, which is also evident from the inferences that I drew with the case studies and also the studies happened in India, that we need to adopt a more technological approach. Now, there are hardly any colleges or institutions in India which are offering courses pertaining to underwater archaeology or maritime archaeology in a broader domain. And Deccan College being the exception, as recently it has come up with a PG diploma degree for marine archaeology. This leads us to the very important question of identity crisis, because we exactly do not know, according to degrees per se, that who is a marine archaeologist in India. And having this big question, it is extremely difficult to motivate the young people or more people to come up and take this research forward. As also Das sir indicated, and as I've also spoken about, there is a need for having a technological approach, and anyways, archaeology and underwater archaeology are disciplines which require teamwork. We need a couple of experts to come together and execute a project. So there has to be a better balance and better connect between the scientists and archaeologists in our country, so that we come up with better working strategies for these projects. Now, the current organizations in India must have worked perfectly when they were formed. However, currently, the structure seems extremely obsolete because they do not offer any kind of internship or any kind of field work in terms of underwater archaeology or PhD programs or even job opportunities for that matter. This, again, is something very unattractive to people who would want to pursue studies like this. Finally, the most important aspect of absence of laws. So in India, we do not have any kind of laws pertaining to underwater archaeological heritage. We do have the UNESCO 2001 Convention of Preservation of Underwater Cultural Heritage, but India has not ratified to it. So this brings us to the need of having a regulatory framework which focuses on some interesting and important aspects like competency, which links us back to the question of identity crisis, that if we do not know who a marine archaeologist in India actually is, then who are these people who get to do this research? Secondly, underwater archaeological research has a lot of constraints owing to a lot of factors. So it is also important for us to keep in mind what are the security measures which are taken for these researchers who are conducting these kind of studies. Thirdly, when we are constantly talking about a technological approach, it is also very important to bear in mind the fact that we need to ensure that using these technological aids shouldn't disturb the marine flora and fauna, and also this very fragile submerged heritage which is present. And lastly, ethics. So all of these indicate towards the aspect where there is a dire need for a regulatory framework in India for the seamless functioning of the domain as well as more productive research, which finally brings us to paving the way forward. So I suggest having a model template. Because in India right now, we do not have any document or any structure which is followed and which talks about how such studies should be done in India. Because I think it would be very helpful, not only for new people, but also for people who are already in the domain to carry these kind of work, these kind of research more efficiently and more seamlessly. And it actually also helps us to take care of aspects like costing, manpower, resources, mindful use of resources, and so on. I just mentioned the dire need for a regulatory framework, and it is definitely very, very important to instill the idea of a shared heritage among everybody, so that it has to be a combined effort, and we value and cherish our heritage, and which is also connecting to raising awareness, not only for the conservation of heritage, but also to encourage more people and the younger generation to take up studies into these disciplines, because we are finally talking about the sustainability of the field. If there are no new people taking up studies in underwater archaeology, if there are no new marine archaeologists in India, eventually it would be extremely sad, because there would be no underwater archaeology in India. It would actually be a dead discipline. So before that happens, we need to ensure that we follow some steps and we kind of reevaluate our strategies, so that we don't lose on to this heritage that we have. This brings me to the end of my brief presentation, and now I would like to take a couple of minutes to thank each and everybody who has made this journey incredibly memorable. I would like to begin with my mom and dad, without whom I think it would be extremely difficult for me to finish this project. And once again, I would like to thank Das sir, Rajanveer sir, MRC, IMF, and I think all the members of IMF for this encouragement and timely suggestions that you all have provided me. I think it has, I would like to again say, it has been a life-changing experience, and I'm so overwhelmed and happy today. I would also like to extend my gratitude to Shinde sir, who's a part of this event, and I would like to share that I feel very fortunate to be his student, to attend his lectures, and also receive both the degrees of both my masters from him. And today my book is adorned by a foreword written by him. Thank you very much, sir. I would like to thank Lieutenant General Khandare sir for not only writing a foreword in my book, but being a constant pillar of support. I would also like to thank Dr. Prasanna Kumar sir for making me believe in myself and giving me insights which were so fruitful and so beneficial. I would also like to thank Harish sir, the Indian Coast Guard, for facilitating my research and my stay in Murud, and Mr. Varun Shaligram for his inputs on the aspect of maritime law. Mr. Swayam Chaudhary for his contribution in my book and being a constant pillar of support. And finally, Mr. Shivanand for his handmade illustrations in my book. I would a special mention to the entire team of Indian Naval History Division. I think all of you have motivated me and supported me so much and allowed me to still continue staying so close to maritime, because now it is my lifelong passion, I feel. And lastly, thank you to my publisher, Penman Publications, and all my friends for being there for me. And with this, I would like to extend my gratitude to each and everybody who made this happen. Thank you, everyone. And now I would take this opportunity to invite our next speaker, and I would like to invite our next speaker and chief guest for the event. Sorry, I'm so overwhelmed. Professor Vasant Shinde sir. I would, although he needs no introduction, but I would consider it an honor to introduce him. So I would read a couple of lines for him. So Professor Vasant Shinde sir is a renowned archaeologist and is presently the founding Director General Maritime Heritage Complex, Gandhinagar. He was the former Vice Chancellor of the Deccan College, Pune. Professor Shinde has also supervised more than 35 PhD students. He has also provided guidance to no less than 17 visiting scholars from foreign countries. Professor Shinde has been a pioneer in archaeological research since the last 41 years, specializing in the proto-history of South Asia as well as field archaeology. He has completed 16 major research projects, in the process of which he has collaborated with scholars and institutes from around the world, such as the universities of Pennsylvania and Wisconsin to Cambridge and Oxford universities, to the International Research Center for Japanese Studies and Research Institute for Humanities and Nature, Seoul National University College of Medicine, South Korea, and so on. He has also directed excavations around the country, from Harappan states in Gujarat and Haryana to Chalcolithic sites in Madhya Pradesh and the Deccan. Oh, the list just goes on. To proto-historic and early historic sites in Rajasthan and Maharashtra. Presently, he has been directing a very prestigious project at the largest Harappan site of Rakhigadi in Haryana. He is a member of 17 national and international academic bodies. He has substantial body of publications comprising of 11 books, 12 edited books, 133 papers in national journals, and 72 research papers in international journals alone, in addition to popular articles in magazines and other periodicals. With this, I would hand over to Shinde sir now. Thank you, everybody, for your time and patience.
Thank you very much, Priya. Good morning to everyone. I am happy to see some of the very eminent personalities. Also, the officers of the Indian Navy. I would like to thank the Indian Maritime Foundation and Maritime Research Foundation for inviting me for this very important occasion. I think I consider this as a defining moment for the Maritime Heritage Maritime Research Foundation, who has initiated this particular project, and they are seeing the light now. And also my student, in fact, Tia Chatterjee, for producing such an excellent book, in fact. Friends, let me tell you that, as Tia has mentioned, that maritime archaeology was started, underwater maritime archaeology was started in Goa in 1981 by S.R. Rao. I'm sure that you have heard about him, about his work at the site of Lothal. He is the excavator of Lothal, who excavated that very important evidence about the earliest dockyard anywhere in the world. So the book, in fact, I was really happy to, I really enjoyed going to this book. And this book primarily deals with the methodologies, maritime archaeology in India in the global context. And she has discussed about the methodologies, the challenges and measures that needs to be taken up, and the new findings also she has discussed, and the way ahead. So in a way, this is a book which is useful, in fact, for everyone, in particular those who want to study the maritime history, underwater archaeology. For them, this is a very important book. Though there are two organizations, in fact, the government organization. One, of course, is the National Institute of Oceanography, which has the maritime or underwater archaeology wing, and also the Archaeological Survey of India had started the underwater archaeology. I was, very curious to know, in fact, what is the development that this AS has done, in fact, in this particular field. Not much, because firstly the headquarter of that was located in Delhi, and secondly it was closed down after a few years. So even though such an important field, we have such a vast coastline, and there is a tremendous, in fact, very rich, varied cultural weight, in fact, along the coast. We have not really bothered much, in fact, about the underwater research in the country. And I am happy that some of the young scholars like Tia, they have accepted the challenge, and they're producing really very, very important substance in this particular respect. I'm sure that this book will be very useful. This is perhaps, as far as my knowledge is concerned, this is the first, comprehensive book, in fact, on underwater archaeology in the country. And I hope that she continues her research, because she has got that potentiality, and also she has the knowledge about the subject. So I hope that she continues this particular research, in fact, in this particular field. So a lot of misunderstanding about underwater archaeology in the country. People think that underwater archaeology is only for rescuing or maybe understanding the shipwrecks. That is not the case, in fact. Now underwater archaeology is now fully developed science now, and we do undertake systematic scientific explorations underwater, and also scientific excavations underwater. So it is really fully developed field, not in India, of course, but outside India. And I know, and this is a very, very important subject, in fact, in the country, that which needs to be further developed from the point of view of research and also the discoveries. And I'm sure that the initiative taken by the government will ultimately help the subject to grow in the country. Now you may be wondering how the sites are submerged. And let me tell you that because of the fluctuation in sea level, in fact, geologists, hydrologists they have established that the sea level keeps on changing, in fact, at maybe some periodically at regular intervals. And when the sea is down, in fact, people establish the settlements, maybe close to the coast. And when the sea rises, these sites get submerged. That is how a lot of sites are submerged. And as Tia also has mentioned, that we have a vast coastline, 7,500 kilometer long coastline, and there are 9 states, coastal states in the country. There are 4 union territories along the coast, and they all have such a vast, cultural wealth, maritime wealth, in fact, in that in located in them. So this is a very, very important, this is very important that we try to undertake research and try to do systematic research before the important heritage gets lost, because there are a lot of factors, in fact, which are now responsible for the destruction of the heritage. I will not name, of course, but that those that is not really healthy for the maritime heritage of the country. Now, the maritime heritage started, in fact, in a real sense during the Harappan times. The site of Lothal, which has produced the evidence of the earliest dockyard. In fact, this particular site was studied by one Navy officer, Bindra. I'm sure that he has written an article on that also. And he is the one, in fact, now he is the first scholar outside the archaeology domain who established and who firmly believe that the structure excavated at Lothal was a dockyard. And then, of course, subsequently, S.R. Rao, of course, he has produced a number of research papers on this. And now, in fact, these scholars all over the world, in fact, have more or less identified a structure at Lothal as a dockyard. So this is a very important, because the Indians, in fact, when we study archaeology or our history, it is not important only to talk about the events, what happened, in fact, in the history, but it is also important that we should convey to the world what are the important maybe contributions that we have made, in fact, to the history of the country and to the history of the world, and also how this particular study is relevant even today. So I'll just give you now maybe a few examples that Indians, in fact, have taught the world, in fact, how to build a ship, because the earliest evidence of that goes, is from the from India. And then, of course, the trade is so important. The Harappans developed this particular trade aspect, and they developed for the first time contacts with maritime contacts with the Persian Gulf, with Mesopotamia, with Egypt, and the Gulf region was very, very important for them. So they developed this contact because they wanted to get wealth from the West, and because the Harappan region did not have so much wealth, in fact, which is required for the development of urbanization. So they developed contacts, and what they did, in fact, the strategy that they developed was very important, and that is something that we should learn from the Harappans. So they got a lot of wealth from the West, and that wealth was used by the Harappans not for developing those pyramid-like structures or ziggurat-like temples, but they use this wealth for the welfare of the common people, which is very important. And literally, the evidence that we have indicates that the Harappans have plundered the West. Literally, they have got so much wealth, in fact, from that. That wealth was used for developing cities and towns, which are perhaps unique, in fact, in the contemporary world. That happens around maybe 4,500 or 5,000 years ago. And then people wonder why the Harappans are not really able to develop maybe structures like pyramids or maybe life-size images, etc. Let me tell you that the Harappans were so competent. They could have easily done that, but they did not do it intentionally because the philosophy of the Harappans was different from the contemporary civilization people. Harappans were use this wealth for the development of the common people, in fact, for the welfare of the common people. So that is a difference between Harappans and the contemporary population. And then of course that the Harappans used to get raw materials from maybe their contemporaries from maybe different maybe hinterland area and also from the international area, and they had the technology with them, so they imported raw material, and they in their workshop they made finished goods, and they supplied the finished goods to the same people from whom they obtained or imported raw materials. And exactly this is what Japan did, in fact, after Second World War. In 1950s, of course, Japan was almost destroyed. I have seen the destruction at Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and I can imagine how much destruction was wrought, in fact, by the Second World War. But within 15 years, Japan became a world economic power, and that happened because of the strategy that the Japanese adopted. They adopted the same strategy as the Harappans did. So they also started importing raw materials from India, China, from developing countries. They had technology with them, and they started producing large mass scale finished goods, and they supplied the finished goods to the same people from whom they were getting or importing raw materials. And that is how Japan became, within 14 years, Japan became a world economic power. And this is a lesson that they have learned, in fact, from the maritime activities of the Harappans. So it is very important that we learn from the Harappans or from the ancient cultures. So also we have noticed that that whenever we have established maritime contact with outside world, we were able to develop maybe cities and towns here. The first urbanization happened during the Harappan times because the Harappans began to develop contacts with the Mesopotamians and the Egyptians, and also with the Persian Gulf people, and that is how because of that they could prosper, and they use that prosperity, in fact, for the development of urbanization. Then of course after the decline of the Harappans, of course there was a big lull, and then of course the second urbanization starts only in the beginning of the Christian era, maybe around 1st, 2nd century CE. And that happens again because we again started developing contact with the Roman world, and we started getting a lot of wealth from the Roman world, etc. So it is the maritime trade is always linked with the growth of culture, and that is very important. That is what we are studying. And then of course the history tells that we had contact with China at maybe around 6th, 7th century CE. And then right from the 3rd century BC, of course, we have contact with Southeast Asia. So there is a lot of maybe exchange of ideas between these different regions, a lot of cultural impact on each other's country, on each other. So that is also quite clear, in fact, in the research that we have done. So that is also very important. And then of course this trade contact continues till the modern times. Why the government of India is giving so much importance to the trade with outside world, and that is the government also has realized, and this is the lesson, of course, perhaps we got from our history, which is important. There are the Harappans and later people also developed number of facilities for maritime activities. They develop number of ports, and we have, in fact, from Gujarat to Bengal, in fact, we have recorded so many ports, and some of the important ones, of course, are this Bharuch in Gujarat, then Chaul in Maharashtra, in Kerala, in fact, Pattanam site, which is identified with Musheries, early strike, Musheries, then Arikamedu, then Machilipattam, in fact, in Andhra Pradesh, then Tamluk, Chandrakirtigarh. They are very, very important. They develop these, facilities for facilitating the trade, with the, with outside world. So that is also, very important evidence that we get. So we have so much, in fact, so much heritage, in fact, and finally, I would like to also discuss about the project that the government of India has initiated, and this is the National Maritime Heritage Complex that is being developed at Lothal, and this particular project is being implemented by the Ministry of Shipping in collaboration with the Ministry of Culture, Government of India, and also with Gujarat government. And the Gujarat government has already given us 375 acre of land, very close to the ancient site of Lothal, hardly 1.5 kilometers away from that. And it is here, in fact, over this area, 375 area, we are developing a National Maritime Heritage Complex. And as a part of this complex, of course, there are 3 or 4 important infrastructures, which will be coming up. One, of course, will be the National Maritime Heritage Museum, a very important, part of the complex. Then also, we are developing the Maritime Heritage Institute here, where the research will be conducted. Not the facility will be available not only for the Indian scholars, but also for there are 40 countries, in fact, which are located in Indian Ocean Rim area. So the scholars from 40 countries, can come here and they can work. Also, we do not have the state-of-the-art conservation lab, in fact, in the country, conserving the maybe maritime objects, also the land objects. So we are going to create that particular facility here, and of course, apart from that, we are developing other infrastructure so that we can invite, or we can attract the tourists, like the theme park, the hotels, restaurants, etc. So this is what we are proposing, in fact, at this. And in the maritime museum, we have we are proposing 14 different galleries, and we are going to cover everything, in fact, right from the beginning, right from the science of sea, the relation between man and sea, then the movement of the people, right from the prehistoric times till the modern times, in different continents. And then, of course, we have different cultural sequences, in fact, in different parts of the country. So we want to showcase these regional sequences, in fact, in one of the galleries. And then, of course, then we'll start with the maritime trade that starts with the Harappans. So trade of the Harappans, then the Indo-Roman trade, then the trade with China, Southeast Asia, up to the almost East India Company. So this will be also showcased there. Then also there will be one gallery, in fact, devoted for the maybe these ocean mythologies. There we have so much, in fact, so much evidence, in fact, and we have already prepared the document for each and every gallery. So in one of the galleries, of course, the ocean mythology will be showcased also. Then the development of Indian Navy, the Maratha, this naval force. Then of course, the activities of the Ministry of Shipping, etc. And we are going to cover everything, in fact. Even we want to showcase the tangible and intangible heritage of some of the communities living along the coast, etc. And also, in India, fortunately, we have a lot of traditional shipbuilding activities happening, shipbuilding and navigation activities. So that part also will be showcased here. So the entire history, in fact, maritime history, will be available, in fact, at one place. We know that people are not going to visit all the coastal states to see some of the important heritage, but at least at one in one complex, in fact, they will be able to see, at least get the glimpse of the important heritage that flourish along the coastal line of the country, and also India's cultural economic impact on other countries, and their impact on Indian culture and Indian economy, etc. So all these parts will be discussed in part in this. So it is going to be a very important project is completed. It is going to be a very important facility for the country, and I'm sure that lot of tourists will be able to visit this and see this. And as is discussed by many scholars, that it is necessary in fact to market our heritage also. Preservation is one part, of course, but apart from that, we need to market the heritage also. And lastly, now if you want to really protect our heritage, preserve our heritage, it is not going to be possible for the maybe few government organizations like Archaeological Survey of India, though it is a custodian of the heritage of the country. We know the limitations, of course, they have. Then also, each state has Department of Archaeology. They also have a lot of limitations, and there are some universities doing research in fact in heritage studies. But this is not enough, because in India we have so much heritage, not only coastal heritage, but inland heritage also huge, and it is a Herculean task to protect such a huge heritage. And I believe that unless there is a participation of the common people in the in the preservation and protection, it is not going to happen in the country. So it is our responsibility of all of us, to make sure that people are made aware about the importance of our heritage. And then of course once they are made aware about this, they themselves will come forward, and they will come forward for the protection and preservation of the heritage. In fact, we have done this particular exercise very successfully at the site of Rakhigadi in Haryana, and we know that this is the only way by which we can protect the heritage of the country. So I would like to thank again the organizers. We'll stop here, and for inviting me, for giving me this honor, and I'm really happy that my student is doing well, and she has a bright future in fact in this particular field. So I thank everybody who is present here, and I hope that we will interact more, and we want that all of you get associated with the National Maritime Heritage Complex at Lothal, and let's build one of the greatest maritime complex in fact in the country. Thank you very much.
Sir, that was a very comprehensive insight into what's happening, and coming from you, I think it's very important, and it's very encouraging from all of us. Work harder and contribute. Thank you very much, sir. So we will have the official book release ceremony, and I would request Tia and her parents to please join, and we also have our MRCC member, Maritime Research Coordination Committee members. I'll request all of you to please flash the book or as part of the customary book release ceremony. All of you have a copy of the book, and I think Tia has already put up, and she's not able to remove this, so we will go with that. So this book is available online, and people who are desirous can pick it up from the online platforms. She has already put the details on the screen, and if your parents are there, we would like to hear from them. I think this is a landmark event in their life also, and if we could hear from them.
Good morning. Good morning.
My parents, this is the book. I think they're very happy and excited. Do you want to say something?
Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning, sir and ma'am.
I'm Anil Chatterjee, sir. Very good morning to all of you. My wife is also sitting, Deepika. Now my daughter Tia, she has written this book under your guidance. Dr. Das, under your guidance and my support. So this is the book which we are sharing to all of you. Thank you so much from me.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much. Thank you, sir and ma'am. Yeah, thank you very much. I would now request our MRCC members, starting with Yezdi Batiwala, sir, may like to say a few words because they have been the elders who have been associated as part of the IMF Fellowship to kind of guide Tia in taking this forward. This project started with MRC. Tia worked with us for a year and there was still a bit of work left, and I felt it is appropriate that I also request Indian Maritime Foundation to support us, and that's how it became a joint event project between MRC and IMF. And as part of IMF, we had the MRCC members to also guide us in taking this forward, and in the finishing stages, their participation was extremely valuable. So starting with Yezdi sir, I'll request you to say a few words.
Thank you, Arnav. Dr. Vasant Shinde, all distinguished guests from all over the world and in India who are with us today, ladies and gentlemen, it is great to have all of you with us for this historic e-launch of the book by Tia Chatterjee. We have all realized that Tia has an extreme passion for archaeology, which now includes underwater archaeology as well. She has been a scholar of the research center and has done extensive research, which is extremely well manifested and explained in the book and covers various fields such as cultural heritage, maritime archaeology in India vis-a-vis the global outlook and the challenges involved, paradigms and the essentials required for this. Ladies and gentlemen, when Tia was asked initially why she chose the subject maritime archaeology for her first book, her reply mentioned that her love for the subject and also to prove that there is no domain which cannot be conquered by a woman. And this is a comparatively male-dominated area, and Tia wanted to make an impact on that, which has come out very well in the book, The Lost Enigma, which brings out interesting facts pertaining to underwater technology, archaeology in India, as well as other aspects on the subject. It is a very well-written book, and I'm sure it will be a good read for all of you, especially those of you who are interested in the subject. Thank you.
Thank you, Yezdi sir. I'll request Commodore Ajay Chitne sir to please say a few words. Vice President, Indian Maritime Foundation. Ajay sir, please.
Distinguished guests, Dr. Shinde and people abroad. First of all, heartiest congratulations, Tia, on the book. I've been associated with this from the beginning, you know. There are a few things that came to mind when I was going through the book. I haven't read the book end to end, I must admit, but I have gone through quite a bit of it. Firstly, you know, when we talk about our heritage, everybody starts with Lothal. Lothal, you know, Commodore Rajan Veer and I have been to Lothal. And when we went there 6 years ago, that was the most neglected kind of place. The first word that came to mind was a neglected place. I was so happy today to hear from Dr. Shinde that they have set up a National Heritage Complex, and he's the Director and General of that, and they're going to have big plans for a complex there. So I'm very happy about that. Another aspect of Lothal that many of you, I mean, we all start with Lothal and underwater archaeology, maritime archaeology, all that we say. But Lothal is well inland, as you know. It is very close to Ahmedabad. It is quite far away from the sea. So, you know, the geography has changed considerably. Things which are connected with the sea are inland. And we're looking at cities like Dwarka and all that who are, you know, underwater. So there's been a lot of change in the geography of the whole thing. So, you know, archaeology is going to play a very big role in finding our heritage. I've been associated with the research for Dwarka because I was a naval officer in charge for 2 years. And, you know, this whole thing in 98 to 2001, I was there. Mool Dwarka was being explored. Dwarka and Bet Dwarka were being explored. So I've been associated with quite a bit in the sense that we were providing as a Navy a lot of infrastructure to the scientists. So I'm happy to see that it's all being recorded and things are going forward. One more important aspect I wanted to mention is that you mentioned aircraft wrecks as part of underwater archaeology. And you've given the instances of 2 or 3 aircraft abroad, which of Hawaii, etc. You'll be quite surprised that we lost a Sea King helicopter off Cochin many years back. I was in the Navy then. It was some 38, and we were looking for it, and we found a wreckage, and we brought it out, and we thought we'd found a wreckage of the helicopter, but it turned out to be the wreckage of a fixed-wing aircraft. Now we all scratched our heads and looked through all the records and found that no Indian Navy aircraft had, gone down over there. Then we went further down in history and we found that the Allies, when they were leaving India after the war, there were some surplus aircraft. All these aircraft were flown and dumped into the sea. The pilots used to bail out. And that's how those wreckages are there. So there are a lot of wreckages around the Indian coast of aircraft also, which need to be looked at. This is what I find, and I hope that someone will take it up looking at your book. Thank you once again, and heartiest congratulations to you. All the best for future books. Back to you, Arnab.
Thanks. Pawan Malhotra, sir, are you there? Malhotra, sir? Member of the RCC. I think he could not log in. Okay. And I think from the audience, we have some very, very important people. I'm sorry I'm not able to address all of them. The first person I would like to call is Captain Dilip Dhonde, sir. He's a very special person, and I think who better to talk about this? I mean, a person who has, who was the first Indian to solo circumnavigate, and I think everybody knows that. I don't need to. And he's been a very special person to MRC as well. And Dilip, sir, we would like to hear from you.
Thanks, Arnav. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, gathered here for a special occasion. My association with MRC goes with meeting Arnab in Pune and listening to his project, what he was doing post-retirement, and getting quite fascinated with it. And within an hour of meeting him, I met Tia at the same Pune club, where she told me about what she was doing. And honestly, she was the first woman marine archaeologist I had met. And I was quite interested in what she's talking about, and that's actually the only association. I haven't had a chance to have a look at the book, but I intend to order it on Amazon and read it. As I had mentioned to Tia then, and as it has come out in her her talk too, that while underwater archaeology is really a little complicated subject for most people, and we need to have more data collection and sort of mapping of the archaeological sites using technology. I speak this as with a background of being a diver in the Navy too. And then, of course, we need to validate the result. We keep talking about the ocean voyages done by ancient mariners and the type of navigation techniques they used and so on. But today we have the wherewithal, we have the sailboats which can travel at that speed, that slower speed. But we need to navigate, we need to sort of validate those concepts and sort of separate myth from reality. So that's my 2 bit on this, and I hope Tia's book is the beginning of something like that. And I'm sure she is not going to rest on her laurels, and she will continue doing more research. And may this be the best, a good beginning. Thank you very much for having me. And congratulations, Tia.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Philip, sir. Thank you so much. And you being here really means a lot for all of us. Thank you very much. I would now call upon Uma ma'am. She's a strategic consultant and again a good friend of MRC. to, and I want to also make it more general neutral. Guest of honor anyway is the lady, so Tia is there, and Uma ma'am, a few words from you, please.
Hearty congratulations, Tia. This is such a fantastic achievement.
Thank you very much, ma'am.
To get a book out like this and on a unique subject, I think that's a fantastic thing. My association with MRC started last year, when I met Arnab, but I had the opportunity of meeting Tia before I met Arnab. And again, the first woman marine archaeologist, I would say. And I'll never forget that coffee meet that we had in Delhi. And I was so inspired by her, honestly. Her passion, her zeal, and her commitment to the subject itself. I think that is what fascinated me, and we bonded over how marine archaeology can actually become part of travel and tourism in India. And of course, I'm still waiting and hoping that we get to work together on this particular in this particular field. So Tia, I'll catch up with you on that one separately. And Arnab, this is such a fantastic event, and I look forward to continuing my association with MRC in different ways that we've discussed. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for your kind words. Thank you very much. Now, I would call upon a very special guest, General Khandare sir, part of the National Security Council Secretariat. And again, sir has been extremely kind to MRC and the kind of work we are doing. He has been part of a couple of our very important programs. And I think no better person today to say a few words on this occasion and also some of the work that we are doing on the underwater domain awareness aspect. Khandare sir, please.
Thank you, Arnab. Thank you so much for inviting me here. And for those who must be wondering what is an army man doing in this particular field, I just want to apprise you that I got associated with MRC, kind courtesy Arnab Das and General Shekatkar, who put me through to you, Arnab. And I realized there is a lot of work that is being done, and also realized that there is much more that needs to be done. And that's the first time I met Tia, a bright girl. And I realized that she has passion to do a lot of work. Heartiest congratulations, Tia, to you for the wonderful book that you have churned out. And a lot of hard work, I'm sure, that has gone into it. And special compliments to your parents also, because when one is being creative, one is putting things together, it is the parents who have to bear with the behavioral pattern, so to say. Arnab, it's to your credit that this fantastic piece has come out. I have not been able to go through it fully because Tia is aware how the delivery boys were playing truant with me. And finally, we were able to locate it. So I promise you, I'm going to read it. I'm going to see it from end to end. I would take this opportunity to compliment the excellent work being done by the IMF and the MRC both. Professor Shinde's talk was really very, very educative, illustrative of how things are going ahead. At the national level, we take note of how things are developing. And I think I can tell you for sure that there are a lot of people with their head correctly on their shoulders, their heart in the correct place. A lot of people silently keep working for the nation. And towards that end, this particular research work which Tia has done has not gone unnoticed. We know that as a nation, India has a special place in the international polity. When we look at like what Arnab said, that I'm a part of the National Security Council Secretariat, I just want to apprise especially the young crowd which is there, that as a nation, we have a history being a civilizational state, which is much, much older than a nation state. So we have a rich civilization to protect. We have adversaries on all sides. We have adversaries who will try to bring in disasters for you. They will try to degrade our capability, and it is the responsibility of all of us to protect and ensure security, and security can be ensured if we have development. So you have security and development going hand in hand. You have to have physical security, you have to have energy security, you have to have food security, water security, and most important, which today we are here, is to safeguard and retrieve our intellectual security. Intellectual security comes from your history and heritage. If you don't go there, how will you see? And that is the point which I am trying to make, that you've got to go underwater to see what you have, what you had. At a lot of discussion places, at a lot of forum, a lot of fora, I always end up discussing with people as to what is our true history. We have a rich seafaring history, and at times I find people in self-denial. We are a seafaring nation, and very correctly, when explained in the beginning, we went through a lot of milestones, and Tia very correctly brought out that what we were, the South Indian states, and even Orissa for that matter, has a rich history of exploring areas, regions across seas. And then in between, for some reasons, we went into a stage where it was felt that crossing the seas was a taboo. And then again, that part got consolidated because of the advent and the invasions of various powers. I do not want to name any one of them. And when now we have started rediscovering, very correctly said, we should not be looking at only discovering the shipwrecks. We have to discover our civilization. And our younger generation has to ensure that these discoveries have to be consolidated, and we have to be proud of our civilization. Now, many people will contest this issue. So I want to very clearly mention there is a difference between certain words which are mentioned in English and there are certain words which are mentioned in Hindi. To be proud of your civilization is not a negative connotation. आपको अभिमान होना चाहिए, अहंकार की जरूरत नहीं है. And if we understand that, let us all work towards rediscovering our heritage, being proud of our heritage, and there is no difference when you look at it as a nation. What is a nation? It comprises of all of us. So there has to be a synergy. The synergy between the rulers and the ruled, the private and the public, the civil and the military, the scholars and the practitioners. Unless we achieve the synergy, we will not be able to get back to our glorious past so that we build a glorious future. And towards that effort, I want to again congratulate all of you who have put in your heart and soul in organizing this event, to Tia for writing this wonderful book, to Arnab for having been a mentor, and to all the office bearers and the mentors who spoke just now. Maybe there are many more, I am not aware, pardon my ignorance, but there are many more who have contributed to this effort. And most of all, the entire lot which is in the audience, despite COVID-19 restrictions, if we all can gather together and applaud the effort of Tia, I think we would have done her proud. Thank you so much. Jai Hind.
So much, sir. Thank you very much for your encouraging words, sir. And we will definitely continue to put in our effort and try and contribute as much as possible. Thank you very much, sir. Now I request Rajan Veer, sir, Commodore Rajan Veer, to have the last word. He's the President Emeritus of Indian Maritime Foundation, as brought out by Anand Dikshit, sir. And he's been encouraging all of us to work towards maritime consciousness, and I think there's no better person to have the last word. Rajan sir, please.
Thank you, Arnav.
Dr. Shinde, Arnav Das, Director MRC, T.R. Chatterjee, Captain Dixit, President of Indian Maritime Foundation, MRCC members, ladies and gentlemen who are participating in the webinar, and the VIPs and the invitees, important invitees today. Good morning, good afternoon to you. Tia, this has been a red letter day in the calendar of Indian Maritime Foundation and Maritime Research Center. We knew that you were writing a book and had written a book, and we were hoping that we'll be able to meet here in Pune, and in person we'll be able to do this event. But it was not possible to do that because of the COVID-19. And so we waited for nearly 6 months to find an answer to this. Fortunately, Dr. Shinde has been very kind to give us a date. Today is the 2nd of October, and we are able to do it in this event virtually. And what a wonderful day it has been, and with so many participants taking part in it. I want to congratulate you, add my congratulations to the many you have received this morning, Tia, for this monumental work, for this excellent work that you have produced. I know you were in Pune and we used to meet. You were working, we could see how hard you were working. You were burning a midnight oil, and we had many discussions on it. And you told me your difficulties and some of the problems you had, and your visits you had to make, and to NIO and the other places you visited. But ultimately, the product that has come out is enormously wonderful. It is an excellent book you have produced, and compliments have been given to you. I'll add mine that coming from a young lady to work on the underwater archaeology is something unique, and I think we are very proud of the fact, along with your parents. I'm very sure you're very proud of the fact that you have produced such a wonderful book. We are very happy to be present here today, and what this book is really a stepping stone. It sets the pace for underwater technology in India, because as has been brought out by Professor Shinde, this is perhaps the only book which has been written, the first book which is comprehensively brings out as to the present state of the underwater technology in India, and what we need to, where we need to go, and what we need to do. There's some very useful pointers in the book, and we hope that these will be taken care of. I would like to add that for the underwater archaeology, we need to set up training centers. We need to go we need to focus our attention upon a properly structured underwater archaeology to be taken forward, and for that we need to have an institution where underwater technology can be taught. And we find in the book that the countries have done an enormous amount of work. In India, we've done a lot of work in archaeology, but archaeology is world famous. They've done work in Angkor Wat and in Egypt, and so many other countries. Our archaeologists are first-rate archaeologists. But unfortunately, we have not paid too much attention to the underwater archaeology, like we have not paid much attention to anything maritime. That's why the Indian Maritime Foundation set up this organization to raise awareness of the ocean and to rekindle maritime consciousness and pride in our people. That maritime consciousness has been lacking, but we find in the last 30 or 40 years now, some of this consciousness is coming, and the government has also realized the importance of the ocean, the Indian Ocean region, and we are now talking actively about blue economy and what needs to be done with that, and the various plans are being made, very comprehensive plans are being made to to take the blue economy forward. And underwater archaeology is really very much a part of the underwater domain awareness which Arnav is working on. Arnav is working on this underwater domain awareness. He's really galloped along. We started the Maritime Research Centre initially for the scholarship. 2 books were written, one by Arnav himself and the other by Brigadier Mahajan. And now this is the 3rd book, 3rd scholar, which the MRCC has undertaken the work of. And I'm glad that we've got the MRCC officers, members, Commodore Ajay Chitnis and the Yati Bhatiwala were here. They've given their views and they've given their comments on the book. So thank you very much for being here today. And as Ajay has pointed out, that we both visited Lothal and we spent 3 days there some years back, and we took down notes because we were preparing for a book which was being written. And it was quite an exciting visit to visit this dock. It's the oldest dock in the world. As Ajay has pointed out, it is well inland now because over the centuries, because of this has moved inside inland now. The dock is well inland, and we saw the museum there. The museum was very well done, and it's worth a visit. I recommend it to go there. And Dr. Shinde has told us in great detail today. Thank you very much, Dr. Shinde. You told us about the National Maritime Heritage Complex, which is coming up near Lothal, and of which you are heading it. And with your experience and leadership, your experience in archaeology, we're looking forward to that thing. And if Indian Maritime Foundation can help in any way with our council members, we'll be happy to join your venture, sir, and to take this forward, because we have a museum. As you know, we had a museum in Deccan College. I take this opportunity to convey our gratitude to you on behalf of the Indian Maritime Foundation for helping us, for supporting our museum and encouraging us, and encouraging the MRC, who was the budding organization at that time at the Deccan College. And we spent 5 very happy years there. And we thank you, Dr. Shinde, for letting us be there. And now we are at the Shahu complex. We've taken a museum there. And it's a very fine place also. And we've set it up nicely. We are very proud of our new museum at the Shahu complex at the Anantrao Pawar College of Engineering and Research. And we hope, Dr. Shinde, when you visit Pune, we'll be able to show you around a museum, and we'll meet again, and we'll show you the new museum that we have created there. So far as TI is concerned, we are hoping to see you in Pune, but we hope we will, and you will come and be part of the integral part of the Indian Maritime Foundation, because you are one of us now. You've done something which is unique, and we are very proud of you, what you have done, and this excellent book that you have produced. This underwater archaeology is a capital-intensive subject. Because when we are going to take it forward, I was just thinking how we will take it forward when the next book is going to be on shipwrecks, and to find shipwrecks, you need a whole infrastructure of boats and things. Perhaps NIO can provide some of that, and the NIOT, but it will have to be a dedicated infrastructure. It will have to be used for the maritime, for the underwater archaeology. And I think one of the reasons perhaps it has not moved forward in the last few years, this maritime, is because the lack of funding. Archaeologists always have found that there are not enough funds available, and we hope that in the underwater archaeology field, when when the powers that be, the policymakers, they take it up, adequate funding will be provided, and even there's no harm in. I think it will be worth a while to consider sending some officers, some archaeologists abroad to learn the latest technology and techniques, because technology in the underwater archaeology has moved on, and we need to learn the latest techniques in it, for which some officers, some archaeologists who are going to be dedicated to the underwater technology, underwater archaeology should be sent there to learn the latest techniques. And I hope that some of these recommendations the MRC will take up for the policymakers to look at when we do this. Lastly, I'd like to convey my appreciation and really thanks to the MRC, Dr. Arnav Das. He really leaves no stone unturned in organizing, in his organizing ability, and his enthusiasm, his sense of commitment is par excellence. I'm very fortunate in having him in leading the MRC and looking at all these projects, all these activities, the underwater domain awareness and this framework which he's working on. And we see the result of that, which is this a worldwide organization we are getting. We get letters, the inquiries from all over the world. And somebody rang me up from Hong Kong the other day saying that we've heard about this MRC, what it's all about. And so you see, this is something which we are very proud of, that we have the MRC, and we wish him good luck and Godspeed in the future in the ventures which he's undertaking. More will be coming, more webinars will be coming, and I want to thank all the participants, especially Dr. Shinde, General Kandade, and the MRCC participants, MRCC members, Commodore Rajat Chitnis, YSD Batiwala, and of course, finally, I want to thank Captain Dixit, the president of the Indian Maritime Foundation, who can help the MRC. MRC and the IMF, they are both mutually supportive because they follow the same aims and objectives, and they're working together, and they'll continue to work together and support each other. And thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for being here today and for lending your support to this wonderful book which Tia Chatterjee has produced. And we wish her luck and good luck to you, and good luck to all of you, sir, for Professor Shinde, General Kandure, who have given their time. We're greatly honored with your presence here today, sir. Thank you very much. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you all for being here. Professor Shinde, sir, General Kandare, sir, thank you very much for being here.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Arnav.
Thank you. That's the end of the program. I don't want to say anything now. The last one. Thank you very much. Thank you, Shinde, sir. Thank you so much. Well done, Tia. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody.
Congratulations and best luck for future.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you so much, sir.
Hello, everyone. Thank you very much.
All the best, dear. God bless.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much, sir.
शिंदे सरकार नमस्कार.
नमस्कार. आपण भेटू एकदा.
येस सर, नक्की 100% भेटणार.
थँक्यू.
सर नमस्कार.
Thank you, sir. Ashindit sir. Kandare sir. Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Arnab.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Congratulations once again.
Well done. Very well organized. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Bye.